Good evening. Sorry, forgot about the light. Sorry about that. Good evening, guys. So, as you can probably tell, I am getting ready for bed. For anyone interested, I'm parked up in Bedford tonight. I'm pretty tired, so this is probably going to be a bit of a shorter video. So we'll get straight into it. I want to talk about Eddie Howe and whether he should be sacked. Obviously, the video is probably coming out at a bad time considering we just beat Villa. But before that victory against Villa, I was seeing a lot of things that, and it's been going on for a while now, saying that Howe should be sacked and he's not the manager to win us things and take us all the way. Now, putting that last point aside for now, I think people have just got way just been way too expectant of this season. I think, you have people saying we were going to get top four again, maybe even challenge for the title and that sort of thing. And for me, that was just completely unrealistic. I never saw a case where we were going to challenge, especially with the transfers that we brought in. And I thought it was extremely unlikely that we would get more than four. And to be honest, even just based off the documentary that came out, I don't think the club were necessarily expecting us to get Champions League again. I think they were probably hopeful that we would or might, but I don't think it was necessarily the club's expectations. I thought it was pretty clear in the documentary that the club were aware that there was likely to be a drop off this season. You even hear them talking about them more likely to get injuries and drop off in performance and that sort of thing. I think the amount of injuries has been a shock. And I do think we were, the club would have been expecting us to do better than 8th. I reckon what the club probably expected was probably to be in the European spots. Now, with all that in mind, I don't think Howe should be sacked. The only way I can really see him getting sacked is if we end up being in the bottom half. I think then we can have a conversation. Because even if we end up like 9th or something like that, you can make the argument that the injuries were a big part of that, especially as they're still not letting up with Isak going down against Villa. So we've got no strikers again. We just don't seem to be able to get strikers back at the minute. Just a small thing on that as well. We do have a new head physio coming in from Leicester. I can't remember his name. In my personal opinion, that's to help address that. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was. But anyway, yeah, we do have a new head physio. So fingers crossed that will help. But I just don't see any reason why Howe should be sacked, especially if he gets us into top 8. Because I don't think our expectations for the season were much more than top 6 as a club. I think fans were hoping for more, but I think that was unrealistic, really. So that's my feelings on that specific scenario. In regards to those people who have been saying that Howe isn't the manager to win us things, I think those people are very possibly right. But I also don't believe that if we got a manager who is capable of winning things, I still don't think we'd be winning for another season or two at best. We might get a Carabao Cup or an FA Cup a season earlier. But I still think, we're still in the FA Cup now. I think if we do start to get players back from injury, I think we have a half decent chance in the FA Cup this season. And I certainly think that next season, with the improvements in the squad that I personally think we will make, I can see us getting a cup win next season. Now, that's a different conversation next season as to whether Howe should be sacked. For me, I think next season we need to be challenging for top 4 and getting a cup, at least to a cup final, preferably winning. And I don't think the club themselves will necessarily have those expectations of a cup win, but I think the fans will start demanding it even more than they are now. So that is why I think that needs to be done next season for Howe. If we don't get the cup win next season, I can see the fans turning on Howe, which, to be honest, I disagree with, because for years, all we have said, what we've said for years is all we want is a team that tries hard, and we have that every week in and out at the minute. And yeah, so while I disagree with it, I still think it's what's going to happen. Now, I'm not saying that even if we try hard every week, that Howe shouldn't be sacked. What I'm saying is that people are bitching at the minute and saying Howe should be sacked just because we've had a rough season so far, especially when you take into account those injuries, which can account for a fair amount of what's gone wrong. So yeah, like I say, addressing the, but just back to addressing the, is Howe the one to take us, to challenge him for the title and that sort of thing. I don't necessarily believe he is. I think he could do, but I don't really think he will. The reason for that is I don't think that the owners will necessarily have the patience to give Howe the time to make the mistakes that he will make to get us into that position. Now, I do think he can, in the next 3-4 seasons, he will get us consistently into the top 4. Probably not this season, but like I say, next season, I think he'll be challenging for the top 4 again. And I think probably for the next 2 seasons after that, there'll be slower progression, but still progression, and we will stay in the top 4. And I can see in 3 to 4 seasons time, if he hasn't got to the point where he's getting close to challenging, and especially if he still hasn't won any cups, I think Howe will certainly be going then. Maybe even before, if he doesn't do well in the cups. But as long as he's hitting those top 4 targets for the next 3 to 4 years after this season, or getting close to, I don't think he will be sacked for the next 3.5 years. That's not to say he won't leave on his own for another job, but that's a different matter. But I think at that point, I think Howe is definitely the manager to take us into regularly getting top 4. Whether he can push us further than that in the time that he will be allowed, I don't know. And to be honest, probably not in the time that the owners will allow him, in my opinion. But I do think in maybe 10 to 15 years, we might see Howe at another club winning titles, or at least challenging for titles. So yeah, that's my opinion on that. I'm actually going to call it a night here, guys, because I am absolutely shattered. I'm recording this Thursday night. It'll be going up tomorrow at some point. I've put it up tonight, but I don't have the best signal here, so my internet's really slow. The next video I do, I want to talk a little bit about the Standard FC guys who have unrealistic expectations and standards for their clubs, and why I believe that they are wrong in how they think. So I'll be discussing that next time, unless something else comes up. Just a small note, Obviously, it's transfer deadline day today. It doesn't look like we're really going to be doing anything. I know Alfie Harrison has now been announced, but I don't think anyone's really surprised by that anyway. It is a little bit disappointing, but as has been mentioned by many other people and me before, PSR is a thing. So it's not necessarily a surprise. And to be honest, even if PSR wasn't a thing, I'm not convinced that there's the players out there. Obviously, Phillips, Calvin Phillips, maybe, but I don't definitely up top. I don't think there's really a player that I would want to go out and spend money on this January up front. I think Calvin Phillips, if we had the money, would have potentially come in, but that would have been it. Yeah. So anyway, gonna call it there. You can probably I might try and do the video talking about the Standard FC guys this weekend to go up on Monday again. But we'll see what happens. So thanks for listening, guys. Like, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.